All right, everyone. Welcome to the Course of Action podcast. The guest today is none other than author of two books. By the time you hear this, his second book will be out. Matt Scott, how you doing?
Doing good, Jeff. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Yeah, thanks, and thanks for sending me a book. I got through most of it before we sat down to record. Excellent. I really like the Lion's Den, and we're going to talk about that. But first, let's talk about who is Matt Scott, other than just an author.
Well, my 8 to 5 job is I work in the supply chain industry, and I have for this is my 21st year actually. But my journey as a writer started really a couple of years ago because I did not enjoy even reading, growing up because of all the required reading that we had in high school and college.
Right.
Watership Down. I mean, just Watership Down made me want to go out and shoot rabbits. Um, but when the Davinci Code came out, that was just a phenomenon, right? So it was a book you just had to read. So I read it, loved it. Went out, bought all of Dan Brown's books, and then we moved offices. And I to this day, I consider this to be divine intervention. I swear to you, I was on the elevator with a guy that I've never seen before, never seen again. Somehow we started talking about books and spy novels, and he's like, "You have to check out Vince Flynn." I'm like, "Oh, really?" So I went to bookstore right away. I think I bought Act of Treason, read it in 2 days. Then I just flew through, whatever Vince had out at the time, and then I was getting it the day it came out for all of the new novels, and then I kind of got wrapped up into Brad Thor, Mark Greaney, some of the other guys. So I really caught the bug, so to speak.
Yeah.
And David Baldacci was one of those authors, and Baldacci is from Virginia, so he lives not far north from Williamsburg or something like that. Anyway, he came down to William and Mary College when he was having one of his books coming out. I think it was Long Road to Mercy, and it was in November of 2018. And I was getting ready to be 40 at the time, so it was my turn at the desk. I asked him, I was like, "Look, I'm getting ready to be 40. Is 40 too old to write your first novel?" And I kid you not, this dude stops mid-signature and looks up at me like this and just says, "Hell no. The industry could use some good young writers." Now, I didn't know whether I should be happier that this legendary man of the industry was telling me to go forth with my mythic destiny, or that he thought 40 was still young.
That's what I'm saying. 40 still young?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So, after that, I had all these self-doubts, can I do it? It's natural, right? So, but after that, I was like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I'm going to stay in supply chain for 20 more years. Why not? What do I got to lose? So
yeah, it's my retirement.
Yeah, exactly. So I came home, started writing it. I had an idea, thanks to one of the ideas I had was, kidnapped CIA agent, because I read Beirut Rules by Fred Burton. Loved that book.
Good one.
But I was really trying to get people to, understand what goes on inside Iran. It's really easy for, to pick Iran to be a villain in any type of spy novel, but I wanted people to understand what goes on inside it. And that's kind of what I took from the Davinci Code, because Davinci Code a lot of Dan Brown's novels, Langdon takes you on a tour of whatever city, Dan Brown, bases the plot. I wanted to do the same thing with Iran. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos, did a lot of research on it. And, I followed the process. I got rejected 96 times by literary agents until I finally got one. But, Surviving the Lion's Den sold within 2 weeks, and it came out last October, and they gave me a 3-book deal. So the sequel,
nice.
Sorry, that shoulder. Iranian Deception comes out. Its sequel comes out in 2 weeks, and then I'm working on the third one, which is called the Ayatollah Takedown. I actually just sent it to my editor this morning.
Nice. Yeah, Iran is one of those countries that we just don't know a lot about the inner workings, because they try to keep that really away from, especially us here in the United States.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an interesting country to choose. A lot of people, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Russia, you tend to see some of the very, I don't want to say typical, because I'm not trying to like downplay it or anything.
No.
You tend to see a lot of
Sure.
recurring places come up
Sure.
in books. And it's cool to see somebody kind of focus on one that we don't talk about a lot. And um, for me, I don't have a fiction book out yet. I'm still working on it, but for me, it was the really big turning point. While we're talking about kind of those influences, was
Hmm.
Mike Madden, and he wrote the Drone books. And
Okay. Yeah.
I read a Mike Madden book. I was like, this thing is awesome. And he kind of got me back into reading. And because I
Okay.
wasn't at the time, I was the only thing I was reading was military stuff for my career. So
Sure. Sure.
I wasn't interested in reading for pleasure.
Sure.
I was reading for work, and that
Right.
was enough.
Right.
So
But all it
Mike,
takes is that one author. That
yeah,
one author that can change your life. They really can.
yeah, Mike Madden really told me, um, you know, you still have that creative side of you that you had as a kid. And I
Uh-huh.
kind of read his books. I was like,
Yeah.
one day I'm going to write a book. I'm going to venture into one of these and just, not knowing anything about the publishing world, just I'm going to do that. And then
Yeah.
I really started writing when I read Jack Carr's Savage Son.
Oh yeah.
That's what told me
Yeah.
I gotta at least try,
Right.
because this is on another level.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, Mark Greaney, Brad Thor, Eric Bishop's a good friend of mine, and he got an awesome book out there called The Body Man. And
Uh-huh.
I'm a
Yeah.
big John Grisham fan, Michael Crichton, So
Yeah.
then I started going back and reading all the old books like Jurassic Park and Outbreak and all that, from a
Absolutely.
long time ago. And
Uh-huh.
I found reading
Andromeda
for
Strain.
pleasure awesome
Andromeda
again.
Strain's good.
Guess another one. So finding reading for pleasure, and then I find out a lot of motivation in that. So
Uh-huh.
um, it's cool to see where you drew yours from to get here now. But let's talk Surviving the Lion's Den a little more in detail without giving it away, because of course we want people to go out and buy it and find for themselves. um, but this is a kind of a unique perspective, I think, as opposed to, you don't necessarily have like a main protagonist. You have some in a kind of a collective, but the main point is that there's a CIA agent that's being
Yeah.
kidnapped in
Yeah.
Iran. That's the big focus.
Hmm.
Um, how did the book come together from idea to main characters to kind of fruition? And what were any bumps in the road? Any changes in direction? How'd that go about?
Yeah, I had a big change in direction after my first edit. But you mentioned multiple perspectives. I mean, I would say that Kirk Carruthers is my main character, but I kind of
Hmm.
molded the story because you see everything through Kirk's eyes. He's the one that's taking the readers on the journey through Iran. He's the one that's on a personal quest to get revenge for his grandfather. Um, but I kind of molded it a little bit different because I'm a fan of the Blue Bloods show on TV. Now, if you think about the Blue Bloods TV show, you know, Donnie Wahlberg, he's really your main character because he's the
Hmm.
one that gets the cases and all that. But the show does not exist without Tom Selleck. I mean,
Right.
you can't have it without Tom Selleck. So that's kind of where I went with this. I needed Tom DeLange, my CIA agent character, to be the kind of the main focus, but I needed somebody else to kind of take people on the tour of Iran, understand, get personally vested in his quest.
Hmm.
And I was always fascinated with the CIA coup in '53. I mean, at the time, it was considered a big success, but the dominoes have kind of fallen since then, and Iranians have a very long memory. Um, but I started out with that in mind, and my original story was about three friends that went over to Iran, and just found the CIA agent by accident, and they wanted to go to the old CIA, the old embassy in Tehran, because I did a lot of research on that, and the book just ended up being too long. It was like 130,000 words, and a lot of it was this travel log, where you're basically telling a story but taking people there. And not that that's wrong, but you can only do so much with it. You really have to have a central plot.
Yeah.
Um, so I changed it up, and I combined the three characters into one. That's the Kirk character, and then I came up with his personal story of his grandfather being involved in the '53 coup. And I looked at Iran as they're always going to be on the lookout for somebody who was connected to the coup. So I was thinking, well, what if there was a manhunt, and they've got this list of people they know are involved. So they track him down and kill him, and then Kirk goes over there for revenge. I mean, he literally puts his life on hold because he loved his grandfather so much. And I felt like that was a story that was, readers could really get vested into, because everybody, I think, has a good grandfather story, or has that one relative that, they're really, really close with. And the CIA, the kidnapped CIA agent, that was a little fun for me, because I enjoyed writing the torture scenes a little bit. Maybe that's where my dark side comes into play. But I tend to absorb things a lot when I'm reading, and I guess I can only plead osmosis by reading, Vince Flynn and Brad Thor and all those guys, of how the political workings, go on, and the backstabbing. And I have a political science and history degree, and then I studied under a former director of the DIA when I was in college. So that's kind of where I caught the bug a little bit. And then
a little influence from that.
Yeah, I really got into it. And just kind of, once I had that second draft done, that's pretty much the version you see. I mean, we cut some words out just to cut, the word count down a little bit more, but for the most part, that's what you see. And
because 130,000 words is getting into Clancy and Greeny territory.
Yeah. There's nobody. There's no publisher in this world that's going to take a debut author at that much.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But I found a really good editor in New York by the name of Caroline Tolley, and I hired her, and she really worked with me well on giving me advice and cutting words out and changing things up a little bit. And it was done very professionally. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people no, they'll just, big red exclamation mark. So you might want to think about doing something like this. And that kind of,
asking really, questions.
Yeah.
So what is this for? What
right.
does it matter? What's the purpose? Asking the question. So
yeah.
maybe you can explain it a little bit more. And then they can go, oh, okay, hey, let's table that, or let's move it, or we need to maybe cut the chapter, move on, and do more emphasis on this so that it drives it home. You really need that developmental type of support in your corner, because writing a book is hard. It just is hard. I didn't appreciate how much time and effort some of these authors went into. Like when I first read The Gray Man, I was like, man, Mark Greeny writes forever. This book is friggin' long. And I just kind of was like, I did not appreciate it until, as a reader, I didn't like long books like that. I like boom, boom, action. Let me blow through it, know?
Sure.
But then when I started writing fiction myself, and I started being more of a student of the genre and learning from everybody else, I started to appreciate the level of storytelling that like Mark Greeny can go into, and he can approach those almost 500 pages, and it doesn't feel like 500 pages, So I didn't appreciate that until I became a writer myself, and I started becoming a student of those guys. And then, the dialogue, the viewpoint, the extra, what you would think would be fluff, or filler as a reader. You're looking at it from a developmental standpoint going, I understand now. So absolutely. If I ever get a chance to meet Mark Greeny, I'm going to tell him just that. I'm like, dude, I appreciate you, because
absolutely,
when I really started listening, man, it's quality. I mean, there's a reason why he's got that, into a movie that's going to come out. So,
for sure.
There is a reason, and same thing with Jack Carr. There is a reason, and those guys are at the top of their game. And
absolutely.
Brad Thor as well. And I know he's got stuff coming out. He just hasn't made it public yet, but those guys, they got it.
And it's different when you start looking at it from the perspective of being a student of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can read for pleasure, all you want, and you'll enjoy it. There's no doubt. You'll enjoy it. But when you start looking at it in terms of the art of the craft, you can really pick up a lot of things. And, that constructive criticism that Caroline gave me really helped. But then, no one should really try and base their success or lack thereof on their first draft. Your first draft is always just going to be about just get it out. Just take it from your head, put it on paper, no matter what it is, just write it and get through it. And then you can go back and start, trimming things up and tying up some loose ends and things like that. And then when you start getting to the point where you give it to people to read and give you feedback, then you can really start tightening the knots a lot like that. And that's kind of what I did. I didn't know. I mean, maybe I still don't know what I'm doing, but that was that was the path that I chose, and so far it's worked out well for me. But you have to put it on paper, just right, no matter what you do, just write. And then, if you have trouble during the course of it, just kind of set some rules for yourself. I got to be honest, I didn't run into a lot of roadblocks with Surviving the Lion's Den. Because I guess I viewed it kind of as, this big band that, had this album in mind, right? So I had a lot in my head. I guess the biggest thing I ran into was having too many words, putting too much into it instead of, keeping the action lean and things like that.
You can always cut.
Yeah,
You can always
you can
cut
always
and
cut.
trim, and
Exactly. The
that's
delete key is your friend. The delete key is your friend.
Yeah.
Don't,
If something sucks or it's too long, go click.
yeah. And, when I had to trim it and do that, that major rewrite, well, I mean, I rewrote probably 2/3 of the book. And it was tough, but I also looked at it as it was a good exercise because I did it. And trimming is always going to be the easiest part. So if you end up cutting, 30,000 words, don't look at it as a bad thing. I mean,
yeah,
that was what you wanted to write at the time. It just didn't work out. And, you're cutting it for a reason so you can make the story better. So that's kind of how I looked at it. But my hard and fast rule is no matter what, I do not stop in the middle of a chapter. If I start a chapter, I have to finish it. And, one of the things that kind of helped me along the way is I would write my chapter, which is usually, just call it between 1,000 and 1,500 words a day. When I finished, that was it. I stopped. And then the next day I would come in, I would reread what I wrote, get the juices flowing, make a couple of edits here and there, and then immediately write the next chapter. So it kind of prevented the dreaded, writer's block word, which I don't even like saying out loud for sake of, getting the virus. But when rereading the chapter before lets the juices flow, so it doesn't feel like you're starting cold for the day. I mean, you don't want to, go for a run and run at a full sprint as soon as you get out. No, you want to stretch, you want to warm up, and then you get moving. So
I've done something kind of similar. I'm a very organized guy, so I use Scrivener and I just created chapters. And then in those chapters, I just jotted down a whole bunch of notes. It might be 50 words, it might be 350 words.
Sure.
And I just kind of whatever I was thinking, just kind of let it blurt out and I typed. And then, as you go into each chapter and you start to write, I can look back at the previous chapter, see the notes, and I change the notes as I write the chapter. So it's a quick reference.
Yeah.
Basic principal points, names, nicknames, things like that. And then you just kind of keep rolling. And it's just kind of always one of these things, and you keep it going.
Exactly.
But for me, it was always about getting it out too.
Yeah, it's just a roadmap. You're beginning when you start thinking about the story and the characters, you just have a roadmap. It's nothing's set in stone. I mean, if you treat it like that, you can. I know Kyle Mills pretty much does. I mean, his outlines he basically writes the book and considers it an outline and then goes back and fills everything in.
That's what I heard. I heard that he writes like a 30,000 word outline, and then he just wakes up one day and says, "I'm going to write chapter 17," and just goes after it. And like, wow.
I mean, hats off to him.
Yeah.
That is an amazing process. I can't do that. I'll start out, I'll do something similar like you did, and I'll just take an Excel spreadsheet and I'll just kind of outline the book, and it'll be something as similar as Jeff goes here, or there's a fight here. And that's really all it says. Yeah. And it'll probably be about 2/3 of the book. And that's where pressure sets in. It's like, oh my God, I only have 2/3. How am I going to get the rest of it done? And the pressure that sets in is actually probably a little bit of a good thing, because it forces you to, get your creative juices going. You don't want to get too lackadaisical with yourself. Yeah. I'll do that. And then as I'm writing, I can add a chapter here. Maybe now we're going to go here instead of there. And if I have Tom DeLange and he's missing for 5 chapters, I can look at the Excel spreadsheet and say, he needs to move up here. and you shuffle it around a little bit, and um, that's what works for me. Brad Thor, he says he gets his ideas in the shower. He's a total pantser. He writes by the seat of his pants. And I think when I've talked to, you mentioned Eric Bishop, I've met him. He lives not too far away, about an hour away. We talked about the craft, and he says he's a total pantser. So everybody has their own
Yeah, Eric
craft.
definitely is.
Yeah,
I've talked to
everybody.
Eric before, and he's like, "I just had this great idea, and I just started writing." I was like,
Yeah,
What's for what book?" He's like, "I don't know."
yeah. You just and more power to them. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
amazed that people can do that. I have to have a little bit of a roadmap that says at least go east or something like that.
yeah,
But the important thing is, no matter what your process is, have a process.
yeah,
Make sure and then make sure you stick with it. Be disciplined about it. And
yeah. What works for you? That's the big thing, is
exactly.
what works for you. I'm a very
Yep.
organized person, so I have a spreadsheet of, books 1 through 5 and
Uh-huh.
critical moments. You don't necessarily write a trilogy, but you kind of like, it's more like that maturation of a character or of moments. And
Yeah.
you got to have conclusions and kind of re-beginnings. And, you look at somebody like Jack Carr and the Terminal List, it was essentially 3 books of kind of checking off the
Hmm.
boxes and finishing the story, but each
Right.
book was a new story. It had a new purpose,
Right.
and um, I think with like Brad Thor, or Scott Harvath,
Hmm.
and kind of what he has done throughout his almost 21 books now,
Yeah.
um, what you've seen Scott go through,
Yeah.
and the maturation process, and
Hmm.
introducing the family and different women in his
Hmm.
life, and the emotional draws that you
Right.
see. It, you know, uh, the fact that some of those guys can go kind of just by the seat of their pants blows me away, because
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
I can't. I'm so organized. Maybe it's my flaw that I've got to plan things out. Now, having said that, I have rewritten so many different things because other ideas came naturally
Sure.
to me in the developmental process. So let's talk. Surviving the Lion's Den is done. It's out. It's being published.
Hmm.
When did Iranian Deception come about, or did you get that light bulb to go, okay, this is the next one?
Okay, so when I finished Lion's Den, my intent was let's get it out, let's get it published, let's see how it does, and maybe I'll write a second one. And the ideas were kind of forming a little bit in my head, but I really didn't have much. Just a couple of you know various thoughts, to be honest with you. And when my agent called me to tell me that they wanted Lions Den, he says, "Is this a series?" I'm like, "Well, I was thinking about it." He's like, "Well, the publisher wants a series. They want 3 books. So what are the names of the other 2 books, and what are they about?" So I had to come up with something.
Like, I can change it later, right?
Yeah, right then and
There you
there.
go.
Yeah, right then and there, I came up with something, and it was nothing more than the original thoughts that I had in my head, and I kind of formatted a little bit into the book proposal that was submitted to kind of attract them to the other ideas, but it really started out nothing more than that, and when I got my contract, I had to jump into books 2 and 3 pretty much right away. So there was no time for me to debate with myself about
Might
what
be a
I was
good
going.
thing.
Yeah, because I mean that's where I think pressure is a good thing. I
Yeah.
mean, you think about it, because I had to look at it from the standpoint of this is what I wanted. This is where I wanted to be. If you want to play for the championship, you got to be able to handle the moment that you're in. You get the crowds, going off, whatever. So pressures can, often be a good thing, but you have to recognize it and look at it as you want to be here. This is why you want to do this.
Yeah, you gotta
Uh,
take pressure. How are you gonna react to pressure? Are you gonna fold, or are you
right.
gonna go, okay? Because a lot of times, I know when I wrote my leadership book, and you can see right here,
Yeah.
um, I wrote probably 65,000 words, and really that 70 to 80,000 is kind of pushing it for a nonfiction.
Yeah.
And I wrote 65,000 words, and I canned about 30 of it, and then I just kind of started over because
Okay.
I felt the pressure of, you know, is this going to be readable? are people going to
Right.
like this? Is this just, yeah, am I just blabbing about myself or am I providing
Right.
value?
Right.
But that pressure of questioning whether it was good enough opened my eyes to the value. And that was really
Sure.
kind of what I saw. So
Yeah.
those 30,000 words got canned, but they were still up here. And I
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
turned them into what you see the meat and potatoes of the book now.
Yeah.
And that was a really big turning point for me as a
Yeah.
writer, because then I started saying, okay, what's the value in this?
Right.
And
Yeah.
why am I questioning whether it's good or not?
Yeah.
There's going to be people who think it sucks, but there's going to be people who go, this is going on the top shelf, man. This is
Right.
my this is my highlight. This is the one I talk about the most. So it was
Absolutely.
just kind of like, I think I have to go forward for the fact that I have something to offer, and I
Yeah.
shouldn't question it because there are going to be people who don't like it. And why do I
Yeah.
care about their opinion?
I mean, those are the things you can't control. I
Right?
mean,
Exactly.
you can be in the moment. You can be, you can be afraid of your opponent. You can be, how can I handle this? What's going to happen? Are they going to laugh? Are they going to cry? Are they going to point their fingers at me? That's all noise. You have to understand that if you want something, you want it for a reason, and when the time comes and opportunity knocks, if you want it bad enough,
Yeah.
you're gonna do what you have to
Get it.
do. Just don't worry about the other thing. I'm very happy that a lot of people that I have never known before in my life have given me good reviews or messaged me on Instagram or Facebook telling me how much I like it, and that means the world to me. But in the end, the stories that I've written for both Lion's Den and Iranian Deception and what's coming up in Ayatollah Takedown, they were the stories that I wanted to write. And I, have a good team, of a good editor, a good publisher behind me. And, you know, somebody's going to tell me if something doesn't sound right or something's wrong, or that's what you have a team for.
Right.
But write your story.
Mm-hmm.
Your story is the one that's important, especially on your first book, because you're never going to have another first book. So
Yeah. And you don't
how,
know what is going to come after that. You don't know if
yeah,
there's going to be a second or third. Go all in on your
yeah,
first one and say, I did it. I published. Because
yeah,
just writing a book is something that people are afraid to do. Some
yeah,
people won't even do it. You're already in like the 10th percentile, just writing one,
yeah,
and then publishing it gets you into the 5th percentile, and then getting another one is in like the 2nd percentile. You
right,
know what I mean? So like, obviously I don't know if those averages are true, but just putting it in perspective,
yeah,
like
yeah,
there's a whole lot of people out there who go, writing a book would be really cool. And then there's people out there who go, maybe I'll give it a shot. And then there's people who actually do it. And then there's
right,
people who actually do something with it.
right.
Big difference. Just start shrinking. So, but speaking about control
Mm-hmm,
and Iranian deception, first
mm-hmm.
question, who did your covers?
Hannah Linder. She's contracted by my publisher at Speaking Volumes. Uh,
Well, I tell you what, those things are on fire. I absolutely love
oh, thank you.
the covers.
Yeah,
They are both phenomenal. So shout out to Hannah because she crushed it.
yeah, she did. She really did. And I was actually being a debut author. I want this to come out right. Being a debut author, the publisher is going to have, they have their fair amount of say as to how they want it published, because they
Sure.
have rights too. So I really expected a lot of pushback from the publisher, and I didn't receive any. The images you see on both book covers were what I had in my head, pretty much anyway. So I had my idea of what I wanted, and Hannah did exactly what I asked. I think we had to make, two changes on the first one, and maybe one or two changes on the next one, and they came out exactly the way I wanted. And
Yeah.
at that point, it's kind of like, you want sales to be good, you want people to buy it and like it, but when you see the cover for the first time, it's like that's where it comes in, is no matter what, this is my vision,
Yeah.
and this is what's coming out. And that's where the sense of pride kind of kicks in. And she did a really good job on these two, and what I've got in mind for the third one, I think people are really going to like too.
She did such a good job because me, like a lot of other consumers, we're going to buy a book based on the cover because if
Yeah, it's your number one marketing
yeah,
tool.
it doesn't look good or not.
Right.
And I put a lot of books on my Amazon reading list. So
Mm-hmm.
then relative or I get to a point where I need to buy a new one, I kind of have an idea instead of trying to remember.
Yeah.
And I put your book on there like 3 times. And
it, it
it looks
happens.
that good.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess on the learning process, one of the things that I learned is on the cover of Lion's Den. There's something about, escaping is their only way to discovering the truth, or something like that. And it is what I asked, but as I think back on it, maybe I should have put something a little bit more catchy, or something that would capture the reader's attention. Like Eric, when he did Body Man, that's what he did on the front, and I
Oh,
think
he had the
that's,
perfect tagline.
yeah, he had the perfect tagline. So that's one thing that I don't think I did correctly, and if I could do it over, I would probably change that. But when I did Iranian Deception, that was one of the things I made sure that I changed. So it's, there's learning processes. Sometimes you don't
Sure.
know what you don't know. Eric obviously knocked it out of the park the first time around. I'm trying to nip at his heels a little bit. I like to kid him, but
Yeah, I text him all the time. Me and him text back and forth, and I'm like, "How's
yeah,
breach of trust going?"
yeah, yeah,
I'm always bugging him 'cause I'm like, "Hey man, come on, I need to
yeah.
follow up to the Body Man," because yeah, he had the perfect little tagline. I think it was
He
like,
did.
"Who protects the president? The Body Man. Who protects the secrets?" or something like that. And
Yeah.
then the Body Man's gone missing. I mean, it was just like 3 lines. It was like boom, boom, boom.
Oh yeah. I
It was
mean,
perfect.
that's all it takes. And to that point, it's one of the things that I can say is within the literary community, among the authors, everyone is so supportive of each
Right?
other.
I know. I
It has been
I've been
the
shocked.
greatest thing. Yeah,
I've been
because we all
absolutely
know how
shocked.
hard it is, not only to write, but the publishing business. So I was sending, you had David Darling on one time. I've talked to him a number of times. So I sent him a copy of the cover for Iranian Deception. I sent one to Eric, and they all give feedback. Everybody's so willing to help each other, because everyone knows it's a very tight community.
Yeah.
Writing is hard enough. So you want to see people succeed, because if you think about it, any author's success within your genre can ultimately be your success, because it's the genre. You want to keep the genre going. So
Well,
in
people want more to read. So
exactly. So
if my name is on the front of your book saying, the Iranian Deception is a thrill ride you must seek
yeah,
dash Jeff Clark. Well, who's Jeff Clark? Does he write books like that too? Does he write books like Matt? So then it just turns into, well,
exactly.
now I got to follow Jeff, because if Jeff's endorsing Matt and Matt's endorsing Jeff, and then it just kind of goes like that. And I was
Yep.
shocked. I talked to Eric one time and I was like, I cannot believe how supportive. You'd think it would be very, very competitive
You would think,
in a
yeah,
specific genre, especially in a thriller genre where
right.
there's a lot of veterans like myself and special operators that have really kind of, I don't want to say infiltrated, it might be said bad word, but they've used
Yeah,
their experience
sure.
to write, and it
Mhm.
obviously pays off because there's some
Oh,
remarkable
for
authors.
sure. Yeah,
But you'd think there would be a massive amount of competition. And Eric got Don Bentley to write something on the front of
yeah.
his
That
book.
was amazing.
I
Yeah,
mean, Don Bentley was at the top.
yeah,
Yeah, he was huge, and he did that. So it's just so cool to see
yeah.
people doing that. And who did you send the Iranian Deception to? Anybody of note?
No, I didn't, because I was under such a tight timeline
Mm,
to get it done. I wish I had Eric. He went to Thriller Fest, I think, 3 years in a row. I want to go, but it's a little pricey.
yeah, it was in New York this year, and I was like,
Yeah,
listen,
and I mean, I'm looking at all the pictures on Facebook and everything, and I mean, I want to go, but based on what it's cost me for my editing services and stuff like that, my wife's kind of like, yeah, you may, we can go, to Miami or whatever.
you should go to BoucherCon this year up in Minnesota.
Oh yeah,
You should.
okay,
Eric's going. I'm going. I bet Steve Stratton's going. A couple other people, but yeah, that's a big one too.
all right. I'll have to I didn't know about that one. Yeah, I'll have to take a look
Yeah,
at that.
I
So
think it's the 9th through the 11th of September.
okay, all right. I'll take a look at that. But I mean, I would have given the Iranian Deception to anybody, but it just the opportunity was, I just didn't have it. I was under a clock to get it edited and get it done. But I have some really good beta readers that read a lot of books in general, and they read very fast. So um, I'm happy with what the feedback that I got, but always, if you can get a Don Bentley or somebody to really give you that that thumbs up, it's gonna help you.
Yeah.
So
So
hopefully
what
maybe in
is
time.
let's talk about Iranian Deception, since it's the new thing that's going to be out by the time people listen to this, it's going to be, available to order. Um, what Without giving it away, let's talk about the second book in this series. What is the Iranian Deception about in a nutshell?
The Iranian Deception comes out on June 13th, so it's a little less than two weeks away. It is a sequel to Surviving the Lion's Den, but I kind of changed things up a little bit. In Lion's Den, there's a character called Ben Thrasher that failed on a mission, and I was just kind of grown to that character. I wanted to do more with him, and Kirk Carruthers will be in it because I'm not going to leave out my main guy.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, plus I'm kind of personally invested in him.
Yeah, tough sequel if he was just
Yeah,
gone.
yeah. So people want to see him, but Ben Thrasher is the main character now, and this is a guy that has a lot of emotional issues. Has a very big guilt complex. So I wanted him to take the reins, but the nuts and bolts of the Iranian Deception is that the supreme leader of Iran is dead, and within 3 hours, the Council of Experts has named his replacement.
Whoa.
And I'll give you a little bit of a preview. The book opens up with my character Beth Jenkins being awakened by another character from Lion's Den named Farad, who is her inside source in Iran, being woken up in the middle of the night, giving her that news. So you have to figure out that's my hook to see who is the new supreme leader. It is a character from Lion's Den. I've done a lot more with that character. I developed that character, but he wants to he tries to find a way to blow away these economic sanctions that the West has on Iran, and he's using a secret from the Nazis to do it. So my idea for Iranian Deception was, let's take the two biggest governments in terms of, I guess we'll go with the word evil.
Yeah, controversial history.
Yeah, in modern history. Let's take the Iranians and the Nazis. I got to play around a lot. So that's the one thing that I can say about Iranian Deception was it was a lot of fun to write because I allowed myself, the ability to write a bad first draft, no matter what, just get it out, and let's play around with it. So I just tried to tie things up and see how it worked, and I think the people are really going to like it. It is a really action-filled novel from start to end, I feel like. And, it was my attempt to follow Brad Thor's advice, which was, to avoid a sophomore slump, set high expectations for yourself and just go with it. So
yeah,
that's my mission. That was my mission on Iranian Deception. And
and the cover looks very dramatic. You got some missiles going off. The red always kind of signals danger, and
pops.
and it pops. And now that you're talking, of course, it's going back to Iran. And but with the Nazis and things like that, and that's cool. So a lot of surprises in store, I'm assuming.
I think I can't give away too much, but I think people are going to like with some of the stuff that I come up with. And I wanted to stay with Iran. I didn't want this to be, let's take them and go into, Afghanistan or Syria or whatever. All 3 books have to do with Iran because that's my playground at the moment. And I just felt like there was more that I could do. There were things that I wanted to put in the first book that I wasn't able to. And, I kept doing my research, and I'm really fascinated with Iran. I wish that I could go. One day I hope maybe I will be able to go because I would love to go. But right now I don't think it's very safe for an American. I've read too many stories about them ending up in prison.
Yeah. It's, and right now, with the way the world is, and kind of, we're spinning like a top right now, more than we ever probably have.
Right.
And I would say it's probably dangerous for an American to travel anywhere that really isn't a pretty solid ally.
I agree. I agree.
Or a member of NATO or the UN, because you just don't know. I mean,
No,
it's a very unstable climate right now between some of the superpowers and their allies,
agree.
and battle lines are kind of being drawn, and
Yeah,
it's
the
kind of scary, but it also is a lot of great material.
oh, for creatively for authors, this is
Yeah,
I mean, this
this is
is
perfect.
oh, this is gold. This is liquid gold for us.
Yeah,
But I mean, when you look
not
at
not real good for the world.
no, no, I mean the invasion of
Inspiration is,
Ukraine and
yeah,
what China's looking at with Taiwan. I mean
yeah,
it's it has a very big domino effect very fast.
yeah.
So
Ukraine. I just feel for the people that are over there,
I do
and
too.
thoughts are with them, obviously, and
Yes, very much.
um, man, I hope they're safe. And it's a very tough world. So when people are listening to this, Iranian Deception is out there right now. You can pick it up. You can also pick up Surviving the Lion's Den. Are we going to be cranking out a book a year? When do we think? You got an early idea of when the next one's coming out?
Um, I just submitted book 3 to my publisher excuse me, to my editor today. I'll get back his edits by the end of the month, and it's due to my publisher by August. So, if I had to guess, I would probably say February, something
Turn
like early,
turn of 23.
yeah, early part of 2023. I don't have a firm date yet. I haven't firmed that up with the publisher, but this one, Reigning Deception, came out between 8 and 9 months after Lion's Den, so I'm probably gonna aim for that same type of schedule, and you know, then after that we'll see. I mean, I would love to be able to write full time or to continue doing it, but there is a business side associated with it that
Yeah.
yeah, we have to see how it works out, but um, this, no matter what, it has been a great journey. It has been my story that I've wanted to get out, and it would have been one of those things that I would have regretted not doing
Oh
if
yeah.
I, was on my deathbed. And now I can say that I did it, and I owe a lot of people a lot of debt of gratitude for that. And a lot of them are people that I haven't met. I did meet Brad Thor one time, but got greater appreciation for him. Les Brown, Tom Bayou, all their motivation, helped propel me to do this. And I did thank them in the acknowledgments of book 1, because it was a big journey, and I couldn't have done it without them. But never give up, live your dream, and no matter what, be proud of it. And that's the road I'm walking right now.
So Surviving the Lion's Den is out. Irene
Correct.
Deception is brand new. When you're listening to this, it is going to be out. So you can go
Yep.
pick up both of them at the same time.
Yep.
If you want to find out more about Matt Scott and when the next book is going to come out, you can find him at all the social media links and websites he's about to drop right now.
You can find me at mattscottbooks.com. You can sign up for my newsletter and contact me through email there, or you can hit me up on Facebook. Just add a regular friend request. I don't have a business account. Message me there on Messenger or Instagram or Twitter at Matt Scott Books. Between the two, Instagram is probably my more favorite of the social media forums. So Instagram or Facebook is probably the best way to get a hold of me if you want to talk to me directly.
And go pick up his books because the covers are some of the best I've seen, and
Thank you.
they are absolutely phenomenal. I love them. They just caught my eye immediately. So,
Oh, thank you.
Matt, thanks for coming on, and maybe we'll link up at BoucherCon if you decide to come this year. And first drinks on me, and we'll kind of
Absolutely.
talk books and stuff. And yeah, man. So I just appreciate you coming on, sending me a book, and allowing me to kind of get some of your time.